Alright, new game, fresh start. I've been dying to... Huh? Funny how you only get this moment once. Interesting start, sure. This part right now, the only time you don't know what's waiting. I mean, sure. I know that one. Wait, did you just... Until the second playthrough, and then you realize it's gone? What is this? What am I playing right now? You're playing the memory of it. Did I really pay 20 bucks for this? I wonder if I can still get a refund. Games are a really interesting concept. Unlike any other media, they're interactive. You control what happens rather than the writer, at least to some extent. I'm a game developer, and I'm on a mission to figure out how these weird little games we play mold and modify our experience, our view, and what they do to affect us. And today's question, what is the game that ends when you stop thinking about it? What exactly does that mean? Well, there's a few topics to cover before we jump into that. For instance, what makes a game from a franchise different from a game in isolation? Is there a way to use your memory against you as a game mechanic, utilizing the way we perceive to facilitate something meaningful? What makes your first playthrough different from, say, your second or third? Let's start there. Consider your favorite game. More than that, the first time you ever played that game. What did it feel like? What was your experience when you first cracked that game open? And now, take that experience and compare it to the last time you played the game. What's the difference? I'll use myself as an example with my personal experience in gaming history. A game that I have always returned to, one that always seems to grab my attention over and over again. Toontown. Okay, I'm kidding, but it is a stellar game, dead honest, and the actual answer isn't better, it's RuneScape. No, wait, please don't go. Let me explain myself. RuneScape is a very large game. There's a lot to experience, a lot to consider, and no amount of game knowledge will ever allow you to know everything. I'll showcase this in a single fact. This game, and all its various versions, are 25 years old, 2.5 decades. How many people do you think have gotten every single item in old school RuneScape? Every collection log slot per in-game terms. That means achieving every single rare item, boss drop, clue drop, and all the good stuff. Guess in the comments, I double dog dare you. The answer is... no, nobody has. Literally 0 people have. That is all to say, my first time ever experiencing RuneScape was awestruck. There were limitless possibilities. It felt like I could tackle the entire world in this medieval point-and-click game. If I could imagine it, I could do it in RuneScape. I spent hundreds of hours getting to level 50 smithing, honestly. I really didn't accomplish much. However, I felt exhilarated because it was my experience in the game. The most recent time I was playing RuneScape was calculating how many times I have to kill an animated armor set until I could get the tokens required to be allowed to kill giants that allow me to get slight upgrade to my offhand slot. Yeah, there's a bit of a difference, perhaps. My first time playing that game is something I'll never get back. It's something I'll never be able to achieve again, and that sounds pessimistic in nature, but truthfully, it's not. I couldn't have enjoyed my mechanical hell, that is, playing in Ultimate Iron Man, in the silly little clicky game if it wasn't for me sinking hours into smithing bronze bars in the most inefficient way possible some odd 10 years ago. All of this is to say that there's so much to discover when you first pick up a game. Whether it be RuneScape, D&D, Hades, Balatro, or some indie title that I've never personally heard of until like a month ago that will probably be a big part at the end of the video.
Foreshadowing as a narrative device.
The first time you play will only ever come once. So what does that mean exactly? When it comes to the experience of a game, it's as much about the game as it is about you. Your meaning, your views, your philosophy, and previous experiences all change a game from an open world full of possibilities to the tightest number crunching you've ever done since algebra. The game is about your perception. But let's make this a bit worse even. What happens when a game gets its first sequel? What changes about the game exactly? Mechanically and literally, nothing. But this wouldn't be an entire chapter of a video if it wasn't more so... I think a great example of this is Hollow Knight. If you haven't heard before, I would presume that your power went out a few months ago and you haven't had access to the internet since. A silly little game called Silksong came out and it basically broke the internet for a few seconds. Hollow Knight is an extremely interesting example of a first-time experience for me personally. Over on Twitch, I did a Hollow Knight no upgrades challenge before ever picking up the game. No research, no wiki, no previous experience, no upgrades whatsoever. It was awful. Shocking, I know. But I ended up beating the game, and just in time, to do the exact same thing for Silksong. As of writing this video, I'm still active on that challenge on Twitch on the weekends. The intro to that video is on my second channel, Ori Does. Links in the description. Very clickable. After beating Hollow Knight under such weird restrictions, I really walked into Silksong with a confidence that I did not earn, and the consequences were readily apparent. If you haven't heard, Silksong is, hard. Really hard. So much so that within a week of its release, its difficulty got dropped universally by the developers. The keystrokes are precise in this game. Mistakes are very punishing, including and in comparison to its predecessor. And after many hours of gameplay, Hollow Knight will never be the same to me. What does that mean? Silksong has revolutionized my experience between these two games, between its story, its protagonist, the expansive lore that exists comprehensively all over the internet and in chat, and the absolute hell that Silksong has showed me. Hollow Knight is a completely different game, a contrast almost as stark as what it was when I first played, except now it's compounded by this secondary effect. If our gaming experience is about perspective, then Silksong has widened my lens quite a bit. The world of Hollow Knight has expanded to great proportions, and ultimately the first game is only half of this larger image. What is a game as time goes on? What does it start as, and what does it become without ever changing in of itself? The way our mind interprets these experiences is fascinating. Almost as fascinating as a game that uses your memory as a mechanic. Let's look at that.
Foreshadowing is
Yeah, silly YouTuber watcher, you thought you could pass me. You cannot defeat me as you do not know my only weakness. Ignore that. No, no.
Huh? Did something happen here? I heard a really bad voiceover. Wait, whatever. God, I actually wrote this into the script. What was going through my head? Okay, back to the game. 7 Days to End With You. This game has one of the most interesting premises I think I've ever seen in a game before. I'll keep a link in the description if you're interested in trying it. I'm sure you've heard a story in which the main character lost their memory, but I'm even more confident that you've never heard a story like this. In this game, you not only lost your memory, you've lost your ability to interpret language. How does that function? Well, as the game progresses, the characters will speak to you. You'll have the ability to inspect various items, labels, pieces of text, and so on. And as time goes on, you'll have to assign meaning to every word you find. And silently, the most interesting portion is probably easy to agree on. We'll never play the same game, you and I, or you and your friends. No matter how I introduce you to this game, as long as I left you to your own vacuum, then you'll experience the game in the way that you decided. Sometimes, perhaps by random chance, you'll create a similar language to mine. Or perhaps you'll accidentally create the exact polar opposite. The point is, whether or not this game has a sequel, whether or not you spoiled the premise and the ending, whether or not you have decided to check the wiki before or after completing the game, and the number of times you played the game. Each one of those will modify the experience you had. And each time, you're playing the same game. But you're having a different experience, one molded by every moment you had with it before. But more than that, every moment the developer had with it, and the games surrounding it. These various facets come together in astounding ways, and each different experience creates inspiration. In fact, inspiration is where this topic really begins to accumulate into something bigger. This is where the game truly ends and another begins, when you stop thinking about it. This is when the game becomes an engine. Okay, what does that mean? What is an engine in this specific circumstance? An engine, as I am describing it, is specifically a mechanism that converts one thing into another. This can be abstract or quite specific in each iteration. A game is an engine that converts time into an experience. It's the reason that we spend big dollary dues on them, and why we take up egregious portions of our lives. Why some of us make an entire living off of it, or even just attempt to. But we can't make a living by just converting time into our own experience. Instead, the living comes from converting that time into a concept, and that concept into an experience for many. Let's break this down even further. Let's be a game developer for a moment. We're creating a game called 7 Days to End With You, where you play as a character that has lost so much memory they don't even remember how to speak. We build supporting characters and environment to help build a foundation for a language, but never explicitly. The fundamental ideas are there, or maybe an intended methodology, but nothing pushing you to make a specific decision. The idea is it being subjective. Boom, publish it on Steam and let people play the game. And as we do, we'll create these new languages, and for every new language, there's a new way to interpret the story and the environment based on the fundamental building blocks we've designed. The words I build will be different based on whether or not I've played a similar game. In this scenario, there's no game surrounding this, so there's not much to build off of other than what's right in front of us. The first time we play, we'll likely be completely lost, not a single idea as to what we are, quote-unquote, supposed to do, even though there isn't really a supposed to, just a do. By the time we get to the end of the game, we may have no real semblance of what the story was because our language ended up not making any sense, and thus no cohesive narrative was generated. So we play again. During our second playthrough, we remember the various scenes we've experienced before and use those as context. Now that we've seen a painting of some type, or remember what one of the rooms looked like, we have context that we hypothetically shouldn't have, but that's okay. That's part of our experience. And finally, after playing twice, maybe 3 times, we've built a narrative surrounding this abstract world. And through this odd chain of events, this series of choices that the developer, Lizardry, has turned into your experience through this abstract world. In fact, one that nobody else has ever had before. Something completely unique to you and your experiences. Now this story, by itself, may not hold much weight, but it can. Not every seed planted will grow, but some will become something that nobody has seen before. A plant or food that will revolutionize its neighborhood, even if it's quite rare. And what this game has now become, under this lens, is an engine that turns time into a story. That is the nature of inspiration. This, to me, is where a game can slowly become parallel with a game engine. A game engine is an application or program used to design games. Its various functions will be, by nature, limiting. It has a specific set of tools designed to make game development easier for the user. Some game engines are less limiting, and thus more complicated. The closer you are to just building a game from true scratch, the less game engine that is involved. RPG Maker is an example of a game engine with a very specific purpose in mind. It designs top-down RPGs. Yes, you can use it to make a plethora of games with different styles, but that's closer to cannibalization than it is to utilization. RenPy is an example of a game engine designed for visual novels, specifically those written in Python. Its tools lend itself to a specific function. Unreal Engine is a game engine that does virtually anything. Whatever you set your heart out to, Unreal Engine can find some way to handle it. But trying to build a visual novel in Unreal Engine is, as the community has claimed it, trying to kill a fly with a rocket launcher. Why does that matter? What do game engines have to do with anything? As a game becomes more complicated, more abstract, more versatile, it slowly transforms into this hybrid between game and game engine. The experience of the game isn't only in playing, but in creating. There's a funny block game that you've probably never heard of that acts as an amazing example of this. You've probably seen this video, where somebody built Minecraft in Minecraft. They later went on to do even bigger concepts. This isn't some mod pack or coding difference. They use the game's internal mechanics to design RAM, memory storage, binary calculators, and all to run an actual virtual machine that plays a diet version of Minecraft in Minecraft. 7 Days to End With You wasn't designed to make a new game. It was designed to be played, but it slowly tugged at that barrier. The way you experience it can be so conditional that it generates such a wildly different experience from one person to another. The engine of experience is borderline arbitrary. It's up to you, and the method of replicating and communicating information in a meaningful way. The only thing that separates Unreal Engine and Minecraft as a game engine in concept is a compiler, the mechanism used to export the game into an exe, which unfortunately hasn't come out for Minecraft yet. Maybe after the end update, we can hope. Inspiration is the basis of this topic. I'm sure you have your own opinions on the matter, and that's what comments are for. Inside your mind, within the boundaries of your imagination, is a world that develops specific to you. However, imagination is not a speakable language. It's not something that we can just show. Instead, it requires a medium. It requires a canvas, a brush, a computer, a paper, something to communicate the idea from one to another. Writing pen to paper is a simple example of this, but the simpler the example, the harder it can be to express specific feelings, emotions, experiences. So games like these, the ones that mechanize your memory or your experience, wielding it like a game mechanic to point back at you, they generate inspiration. The game is no longer just a fun way to kill time. It's an engine that generates inspiration. This generation is a medium that's used to express ideas. In my favorite instances, this is you communicating an idea to yourself. Now that's a weird one. I want to pin that right there. Communicating an idea back to yourself. At first it sounds redundant, but it's not. Our minds are rampant, prolific, and chaotic in nature. We think so much that we say so little in comparison. Sometimes a game like this will organize our thoughts into a cohesive narrative, something we can finally share with another. This is the essence of a narrative. A world, a story, an idea, a concept built and fabricated from nothing, but imagination jumbled up like particles in the void, using an engine to slowly come together into a formulated idea, communicated to a few, a dozen, 100, 1,000 people. And ideas, experiences, they're flimsy by nature. There's nothing holding them together except your interest. The moment that you are no longer interested, or the moment that you find no more meaning in the narrative, it disappears. It's gone, receding to a distant memory. This world that these experiences generate using our thoughts and tying them together into weird knots we never would have thought of, an engine of inspiration. And when the day ends, the lights go dark. The game ends when we stop thinking about it. A whisper that was never heard. That may sound a bit dark, but it's truthfully a lot prettier than that, in my opinion. Most thoughts do not turn into cohesive narrative, but sometimes I play a game that develops a storyline that I kind of accidentally designed on my own using my own agency and free will. And I use that inspiration to create something, either on my head, in a notebook, or wherever. And the moment I stop thinking about it, the narrative ends there, ceases to exist at best until I pick it up again. At worst, for eternity. But 1 in a million times, it will become a keepsake that defines me. It will become the epiphany that changes my life. The one that teaches me to see the world through another lens. Like this one. The Sonder behind it all. The way you perceive a world so different to me, and the way we can both utilize that fact to expand our horizons. Until we both stop thinking about it and live another day. This video was a wild ride for me personally. Stuck between new script structure and algorithm politics and all that jazz kind of landed me here, researching and coming to this conclusion. It's kind of a self-fulfilling cycle in a way. It kind of feels like writing the script was a point to aiding the script itself, but that's a whole can of worms to open in another video. Speaking of another video, I have another for you to check out. If you like concepts like this, or like the funny little dude who floats around on screen, click one of these cute little buttons. Or subscribe, I don't know, it's not like I like you or anything, idiot. Oh, and very importantly, thank you to those wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous people you see on screen. Those are my patrons. To those who support me on Patreon, you literally make this possible. I'm allowed to spend my full time working on content, coming up with ideas, and producing videos like these. Special thanks to those Damons and Paragons. You guys are whack. I love you all way too much, probably for my own health. And of course, thanks.